A speech pathologist has taught her dog to effectively communicate using a board displaying simple words. She's already received multiple requests to lend her word board to the White House.
Cardi B recently shared Instagram photos of her trip with her daughter to Disneyland. And wouldn't you know it, she's already in a Twitter feud with Minnie Mouse.
Nice.
The CEO of McDonald's stepped down following a consensual relationship with an employee. Turns out he just couldn't resist that come-hither look from the Hamburglar. Rubble, rubble.
A boulder that mysteriously disappeared weeks ago from a national forest in Arizona has reappeared, and forest officials have no idea why. Although they have noticed a very satisfied look on the face of a forest grizzly bear wearing a cape and top hat.
And finally, children attending the White House Halloween party were reportedly asked to help build the wall by placing paper bricks onto a mural. It was especially awkward for the kids dressed as Dora the Explorer. The Trump Report starts now.
I'm Maria Menounos, and you're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
Yes, indeed, we are here to be the buzz of TV talk. I'm still thinking about that grizzly bear with the top hat and the cape. That's one of my favorite visuals of the week.
That was my favorite of my
And a
joke.
week that brought a lot of joy from the headlines. That was a good one. I'm Christian Bladt. This is the Trump Report, joined by the whole gang. Chelsea Galicia.
Hello there.
Tamra Brown.
Hi, what's up?
And way down at the far end of the desk, Mitch McConnell's #1 follower on Instagram. Actually, I guess just Twitter. Is he on Instagram?
I'm sure he is. But
Wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah, let's find out. Scott
To see
Moore.
more of that face, shining face.
Oh,
and-
yes.
and I would love that.
We should be so lucky. Scott, important place to start off with is there are some local races going on tonight, so you'll keep an eye on those.
I will.
And let us know. President Trump was in Kentucky, I believe, yesterday.
Right.
And the numbers that I saw in that race was a dead heat. Now, are you seeing basically the same thing? Because you seem to understand numbers better than I do.
Our poll guy.
I'm not much for book learning.
Well, right now the interesting thing is that it seems that voting, which is great, the numbers of people voting are up in all the states, but we're seeing kind of similar numbers. So like Democrats are running up in some of the cities, and the rural areas, the Republicans are running up. So, it's just going to see who had the better outcome on getting people out to vote. So,
but the real important thing is, how is Rand Paul's neighbor voting?
Yeah,
Right.
right.
Beat him up last year. Seeing Rand Paul out there stumping for Donald Trump, it's a reminder that
The world is bizarre.
Yes.
Everyone is full of shit. And,
True.
Like you think about his father, you think about the stance that Rand Paul has made. There's a Venn diagram that has a little crossover between him and Donald Trump, but I don't know. I mean, other than his amazing haircut, I'm not a huge Rand Paul fan, but I do look. When you have that kind of salad on your head, as they say, obviously you know how to live life. Wow. But I was just like, he's just out there. It's like, all right, so it's not as disappointing as Ted Cruz. Well, Ted Cruz is very disappointing, but Ted Cruz stumping for Donald Trump. Like, he said your dad murdered JFK, and you're out there talking about how great he is. Like. No one has any standards.
Right.
It's like
or any self-respect.
I mean,
Come on,
Well,
people.
hang on a minute. Can we really enlarge this to everybody is full of?
Yes.
We could narrow it Republicans,
Oh,
congressmen.
I think it's everybody.
because
Everybody
any
in the world?
politician. No, every
Oh.
politician in the sense of
I
that.
would say that everybody
level.
is full of shit to some extent.
Sure.
And people are always finding new ways to do it. And I know, Tamra, you're going to say oh, there you go, that's your favorite target. But Hillary Clinton saying that Tulsi Gabbard is a Russian operative. What's the game there?
Wait, hold on. Where's the full of esh? Are we allowed to say the word?
I've said it 3 times. So do you
I
think
love that you're
do you
like,
think
wait,
it
can we
matters?
say it?
Look, I don't know. Are you allowed to say it?
I know
don't
that
know
just
about
because
it.
Christian can say something
Yeah.
doesn't
Are we
mean
not
that I
supposed
can.
to say Russian? Were we not supposed to say that?
So let's call out the person who's polling 12th out of 10th. And let's really call her out and say that she's a Russian operative. One of only 2 people that are running for president who's actually served in our military.
I get that
Let's go
that's a
ahead.
really bad good attempt or look or whatever. But what does that have to do with Rand Paul stumping for Trump?
Oh, everybody's full of shit. You know,
Right, it goes back to that, yeah.
It's just the whole point. It's just because you said as Republicans, I'm like, well, I mean,
sure, there are definitely
Yes,
some
Democrats.
So let me go on record
then-
to say
Well, I'm
that I
saying,
do believe
and
that.
people here in Hollywood too. There's a lot of them out here too.
You know what? I haven't encountered that in Hollywood. Tamra, have you?
I think I'm pretty sure that Hollywood has the reputation of being extremely genuine.
I've found people to be very accommodating since I arrived in Hollywood. People are always quick to lend you money when you're down on your luck. I'm sure you found that,
That
too,
being
Tamra.
said, even though I was just sarcastic, I always am the person that whenever people are always like, "Oh, everybody in LA is so fake," I'm like everybody's super genuine everywhere else you go. I'm always such a defender of Los Angeles.
We saw representation last night that people are apparently really fake in Kentucky too. So it is a bipartisan issue.
it is.
Just being full of it. All right. See there, I didn't use the word that time.
some
Do you
people
feel
better than
now?
others.
Yeah,
Better at the game of that than others.
And there are degrees of it.
Yeah,
absolutely,
I feel like
yeah.
we can't put everybody in the same degree of Rand Paul stumping
Okay,
for...
you know who I think isn't full of shit? Jimmy Carter. The guy keeps falling down and he
Yes.
still shows up at events. He's 96.
Yeah.
Like he could stay home and everybody would be like, good for him.
Yep.
But no, he's got a black eye. He's like
Still
got a
teaching
limp.
Bible classes.
Yeah, he's building houses.
Yeah.
He's 53 years older than me. And he's building houses. I've never built
I know.
a house.
I can't build a house now either. And
I'm glad you did the math because it would not have driven that point home had you been off by a couple years.
It's funnier I was going to count with my fingers. Anyway, the stump speech, as it were, which I guess is a nice way to say that Rand Paul was standing next to a stump. No, that's not nice. Let's be nicer than that. But that to me has some degree of desperation that President Trump is. Look, guy loves to hold a rally, but does he really want to go to Kentucky to do it? You know.
I think that's...
No, he wants to have
maybe
an
where he doesn't
arena.
get food.
He wants
Kentucky
to
is
have
a very Trump country.
He wants to have
Right.
but I mean, he wants to have an arena in like Denver. You know, like I mean, I don't think it was at like a football stadium. You know, it wasn't the size event that he could scalp tickets to elsewhere. So. Why do you think this race might be so important to him? And I'll open that up generally. Anyone who wants to weigh in on that first. Scott's tabulating some numbers. He's actually checking my age versus Jimmy Carter's to make sure that I was right.
My answer to that would be, I think Trump won really handedly in Kentucky, and he wants to keep that up. And I think he wants to have all the other smaller races leading up to re-election of his buddy Mitch McConnell to go okay. So he wants to keep...
And Scott's buddy, by the way.
I mean, Scott is Mitch McConnell's perhaps number one troll. I think we should help clarify that.
True.
So I think that the leading the pathway nice and clear for McConnell's re-election might be Trump's reason for going to such a little crowd and stumping.
And I'd say too, I think because for him, he feels like he can say it's a win, even if it's deep red country. He can come back and be like, well, Matt Bevin would have only won by 1 point, but I went in and he won by 10, that sort of thing if they win. To him, it feels like he's going and playing the game, going to, like you said, places that are going to support him. And then he can feel like when they win that it was all because of him.
Can you imagine if it flips to a Democrat?
Yeah.
Then the idea that Kentucky might unseat Mitch McConnell would be slightly possible, and it would just rally people to the nth degree, more hardcore than Trump ever could.
Well,
maybe.
Yeah. I mean, the thing that's interesting about some of these states and the fact is that Andy Beshear is the current Attorney General running for governor, and his father, Steve Beshear, who was the last Democratic governor. And and that was only 8 years ago. So, the Deep South is still interesting in the fact that they do tend to elect Democratic governors. I mean, you have the same thing in Louisiana right now and North Carolina. You do end up getting those things that do happen more often. I think somewhere like Mississippi would be more of a shock even than Kentucky, only because the way they do their setup, it's almost like, bless you, like there's like an extra layer to prevent the ability for the minority party to win, because you have to win by majority of like basically congressional districts. So even if you win the popular vote, you still have to win a majority of the districts as well.
They have like an electoral college
sort
within
of like
the
an
state?
electoral college, because they did that way back in like the 1800s after the Civil War, and it's never been overturned. So it makes it even harder for someone to win statewide office in the governorship because you have to win the majority of the districts too.
After the Civil War, would somebody want to
I know,
change the
right?
way that votes are counted?
Exactly.
I'm not a scholar of history,
I know,
I can't follow. But I mean, regardless of how these races go, it's not really like hugely significant.
No.
It's just either side gets the point. Like, hey, look, we're clearly trending in the right direction because, you know, our guy. I don't know. Are they all guys? I have the races that we seem to care about.
For the gubernatorial races, you know, Virginia, the whole delegate slate is being voted on today, and you know, a couple years ago it was down to one seat, and it went with a tiebreaker when they pulled the name out of the hat. I mean, that's how close it was. So the Democrats actually have a chance tonight in Virginia to take the delegates, which gives them a further lock on the hold because they've got the governorship, lieutenant governorship, the attorney general. Both their senators are Democrats, so they can get the delegates too. They're basically a completely blue state.
Important question: to be a delegate in Virginia, I guess if you're a Democratic representative in Virginia, do you have to be in blackface when you go to the office, or is that just sort of?
I think that's just after hours, you know, when you're going out.
Look, it's important because you know, look, it's not just our neighbors to the north, right? This is something that happens right here at home.
Thank you for that reminder.
Yeah. Well, I was like,
where are we going
bring
to
it up to KIV
without reminders like that? You know,
bring it back to Alabama too. KIV also. Let's keep it bipartisan.
I want to make sure that we talk about something that Chelsea is excited about, and let's start off with the economic news. We're all millionaires now, Tamra. I think that's fair. We're all doing really well, and if it weren't for Trump, we would all be poor right now. Is that all? I mean, anybody wants to interrupt? Please tell me. That's the facts, right?
Why interrupt facts, right?
Right, exactly.
Thank you. I thought we lived in a post-fact society, but when the facts are this blatant... look, I think that for some people, I guess things are going well, but... a lot of times...
And can I also say I was born into poverty, but I did pull myself up by the bootstraps.
Well, thank God.
So
yeah.
That is why I am now wealthy.
You wouldn't be here if you hadn't pulled yourself up by your bootstraps.
Hard work.
So there's a tweet from President Trump that I think we'll start with because, you know, there's other stories that I could refer to, but he kind of says it right here. This is Chelsea's baby, so I'll let you kind of steer this. So we'll start off with a tweet. You know, there's a combination of tweet and creep. I might not be wrong.
Yes.
You know, a treep.
I do need to give like a bit of I know what we're sort of, we brought up the economy and then we're now about to go into the stock market. So I feel like I need to say that
they're the same thing. I don't know if you knew that. I've heard that from the president.
I'm glad I didn't have to say that.
They're the same thing. No.
Okay. All right, great.
Yeah, it's like now, climate and weather.
Now that we got that out of the way.
Hang on. Climate, weather, the economy, and the stock market. All four of those are the same thing. All right. Now you can go on.
Great, perfect.
Somebody has to put it out there.
So Trump tweeted, stock market hits record high. Spend your money well. So you know that the responses he gets to this are pretty good. Starting with the first one, which unfortunately I cannot see. Because
can we increase
here we go.
Yeah, there we go.
Companies borrow at low interest rates and use the money to buy back shares. Share prices go up. Nothing sustainable on the long term here, which is right on for me because that's what I suspected was fueling this, is that the Federal Reserve recently again lowered interest rates, and that's probably what's the sugar high is on now. Another tweet, if we could zoom in so I can see who is this person who replied.
Oh yeah, let's see the J-Lo in the booth. Let's zoom in, but scroll up if you can. We want to give credit to the tweeter. It is...
keeping the theme.
Give a shit 9. I'm so glad that 8 other people gave a shit before Give a Shit 9 signed up. Because, you know, honestly, I thought we were the only ones, the four of us.
Yeah, and I think he says, gee, haven't...
Or she. We haven't clicked through to check their pronouns. Right. We don't know.
It's true. I stand corrected. Gee, haven't seen it in my Social Security retirement account. By the way, my cost of living increase better be huge. So yeah, here is another great problem that's pointed out with this, is that even when the stock market hits record highs, it doesn't do anything to Social Security. And people still get the same amount of money, even though the stock market goes up, and it should benefit us all, and cost of living just keeps going up. Here's somebody, State of the USF, said, I did, as in responding to Trump's suggesting that we spend well, said, 2020 towards Andrew Yang.
Well, that's smart,
Christian's
because
favorite.
he's gonna give you Jimmy Yang is
$1,000
gonna
of it
give you
back?
back $1,000,
Yeah.
and honestly, the next month
Every
he's
month.
gonna give you back another $1,000. So that's a good investment in your future.
So in 2
yeah.
years, you'll end up making $400. So.
No, you 2 months because he's gonna give you $1,000 a month, isn't he?
Oh yeah. I mean 2 months. That's what I meant.
Yeah.
See,
no.
math.
Come on,
No, no.
it's a perfect deal. I
meant 2 months, yeah.
Don't rock the boat there.
Tricky responded with, damn, but my wages aren't linked to the stock market price. Correct. I shall sleep better knowing that some rich guy just made
Right.
more money. Yes, this too feels right on.
I have to agree with Tricky because I don't know. I mean, I guess from some old job I have like some kind of like IRA portfolio, but I don't play the stock market as it were. No, so I'm like I don't. And all I
You
know
could
is
be a millionaire.
no. I
might
get
be,
the
you don't know.
statement. I get the statement, and I'm like, oh, it's worth half as much as it was last year. Great. So
And then there's all those fees with those kinds of accounts too. So Michelle Hutchinson says, I'm trying to think how I can spend my money when my income has stayed the same, but everything else has gone up. Yes, wages, although they're saying are rising so slowly that it's still not keeping up with inflation, and it's certainly not keeping up with the level of productivity from American workers. So yeah, wages are staying the same. Cost of living is going up. So it's like, I don't know what this
medical costs are going up.
Party is
college
that Trump
tuition is
wants to
going
see.
up. All those things that everyone
cost
thinks
of
is going up.
Popeyes chicken sandwiches
Rent,
are going
real
up.
estate.
It's a very controversial issue. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what's not going up right now.
I do not know.
Houses in
CD
high brush
OG
fire risk areas.
1969. Anyone notice how the stock market skyrocketed after Nancy Pelosi took the impeachment vote? Thank you, Mrs. Pelosi, for improving our economy. Please keep up the good work.
That's a
You
good
know what
one.
though? I
It
have
is
to
a good
throw this
one.
tweet out because I don't like anybody who uses an exclamation point followed by a period. No, I'm sorry. That's just come on, pick one. You don't get to use
Now
all
that
of the
Christian is
punctuation.
going to be monitoring your grammar on Twitter, everybody take note.
Everybody, make sure you just take a second before you send out the tweet.
Okay, how about this one? Secretary of... Oh, I missed it.
Secretary of
Bitcoin. Oh,
Wow, a lot of,
interesting.
That's a great department to be
Yes.
in, by the way.
Says, okay, King Boomer. Okay, so this became a joke this week, and I think I'm slow to it. So now we just make fun of baby boomers by calling them okay boomer. Is that
was
what
a
it
meme
is?
and it was
It's
a-
like
from a
a
couple-
response,
yeah.
like a patronizing, like, okay, boomer.
Ah,
I'm
okay.
not getting into it. Okay, boomer.
And so then, and then Trump is being elevated to King Boomer, which I said elevated, but really it's like condescended to as King Boomer.
Yeah, but I mean, look, you
I'm
still
glad I
get
know
to-
what
you still get to be the king of something. You know,
Okay.
I mean, yeah.
Well, thank you all for letting me in on the joke because I knew there was one, but I didn't understand what it was. So now that I'm in the know,
When
I feel
read that,
cool again.
When I read that, I thought it was King Boner.
Oh, yeah,
And
yeah.
I was like, why was that not at Bill Clinton? So I just didn't understand. I couldn't follow.
All
any of it.
right.
Well-
Following that one up with, what's this one?
Oh, we have one more.
Yes. The
US
moon?
Nation-
The moon?
Wait, was
The
that the
moon?
person's? Oh, it is.
The moon says.
But it's the moon, Carl.
The moon
So
says.
Carl lives on the moon. Good
all
to
right.
see you.
But makes a good point.
Yes.
U.S. national debt hits record high. Save your wealth well. Very smart response.
I think the thinking on the debt by a lot of people, elected and otherwise, is that the number's so high that it becomes easy to just push it to the side, and because I don't know what the debt's. I'm sure it's in the trillions or there's a quadrillion out there. I don't know where the debt's at. I do remember in my lifetime there being a surplus at one point, but I mean that's a long time. I think that's 20th century
Yes, that's
economics.
20th century.
21st century,
Yes, it's all
we
about
instead
the
just
debt.
run the deficit to trillions of dollars.
Yeah.
But I
And
don't
also,
know.
and also, it seems like if you're in the other political party, then if your party's in power, then it doesn't matter. And then when your party's not in power, then all of a sudden you care about
Well,
it.
I mean,
Right,
especially
because,
for Republicans.
because what Trump has done is some of the things actually that Obama wanted to do, but Republicans are like, no way, you can't increase the debt. Then they let Trump do it, and then they say he's the greatest thing since.
Right.
I got to come up with something better than
Sliced bread, I know, because that's what I was thinking too.
Yeah, that
I
one's-
do like sliced bread though.
So thank you for everyone
Yes.
for playing. Well, I think what we're going to call this.
Oh yeah, what are we gonna call it?
Social is saying, the Trump Report new segment, what Social is saying. So please, if you've said something clever or seen somebody who has, please make sure a Christian finds out. Or
you can let us all know. At Trump
us.
Report ABTV, but we'll give you our individual social media handles. And I keep waiting for Scott to screen grab some of the back and forth with Mitch McConnell, but it's not really back and forth.
Maybe I should start putting the show on all my responses now.
Has he blocked you?
Not yet. That's why I'm waiting for you to be blocked.
The president can't block people.
No, he can't.
No, he can't, but I'm waiting for it.
Ocasio-Cortez can't block people.
Right, she had to apologize for
and I think she had to
somebody.
pay some kind of fee for blocking somebody.
I don't know about the fee, but I know there was an apology.
So
There was,
Mitch
yes.
McConnell can't block you.
No, technically not. That's why I'm waiting for it so then I could sue.
Wait,
But,
are politicians not allowed?
no.
That's
they
apparently.
can't block people.
No.
Correct.
First Amendment, being able to freedom of speech.
That's where we drew the line of standards on Twitter etiquette. Is they're not allowed to that
because they're not a
makes lot of
private
sense.
citizen.
Well,
so
look, if Twitter etiquette is important to you or anyone out there, obviously it's Kamala Harris's hot button issue that she tried to really hammer home in the debate. But I have been reading that it must have worked because I think she's closed all of her offices in New Hampshire. Still running for president, though.
That was an actual thing?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't know
yes,
that.
she's focusing
but-
on Iowa right now.
She's focusing on Iowa, but I think that it is time for us to pour one out for our fallen homie, Beto O'Rourke, who, of course, was a favorite here of the show.
He was? Of who?
I mean, who was more entertaining? Well, Marianne Williamson. That's true.
And she's still in it.
No one's more entertaining than Marianne. But, from the moment that he, appeared on stage, yes, with the skateboard, I can't let go. I was just like, yeah, this guy should be our president. What do you think, realistically, were the reasons why? Look, he was on the cover of Vanity Fair. There was a lot of, to use the word fair again, there was a lot of fanfare about him early on. The early buzz on him was big. Was it, Tamra, once he started trying to articulate plans that people were like, I don't think I want this guy going door to door taking guns or any of that? What do you think it was about Beto that didn't work on a national level?
Nationally, it was the gun policy is what I've been seeing the response of what people are saying, even though even members of the NRA are majorly in favor of some form of gun control. But I think that was the issue that really
Brought him down.
But also for me, me personally, like those debates, he just he didn't dazzle. So I think if he were better on the debate forum, I guess, or well prepared, I think that would have done him.
I don't know if I'd say I became an unfan, if that's a thing, but when he...
Are you a hater where the middle is an 8? So you're an H8ER. Is that you? Were you a Beto hater?
No, I'm not quite sure. But I think I definitely moved in that direction.
Okay.
With his comment about something about how he refused, he said not early, but a couple months ago, that he refused to run for anything other than the presidency.
Right.
As if to say that anything less was beneath him.
Yep.
And that was not a quote, but that is how it read to me.
But it's essentially what he
yes,
said.
that's what I took it as too.
And so then I was like, oh, I'm done with you.
What do we think he's going to do now?
I don't care. Actually, that's not true. I hope that somehow he gets re-inspired to run against Ted Cruz again.
Or run against Cornyn. There's a Senate election next
with him
year.
saying that
He's
he
not
wouldn't
going to
run
just
for anything
disappear
else.
should.
into obscurity. He's not just going to, is he going to, most likely, is he going to get some sort of like correspondence role on a morning show or something like that?
I don't know.
I think he's going to write a book because I think that's what people with very little to say tend to do is try to fill.
I feel like
I'm not telling you about my book.
I feel like he's going to become some
but
sort
when it is,
of.
let us know.
I feel like he's going to become some sort of pundit or personality because that's what he seems to be drawn to is the the entertainment aspect of it. So.
Well, I think there were two things that were going on. One was the fact that running for Senate in a very red state and getting everyone excited and riled up and making it as close as it was very exhilarating. But it's a very different race for running for, as we know, again, it kind of goes back to governors and everything, for a statewide race versus the national stage. And at this point, I think there was only enough space for two younger guys that were, and Mayor Pete kind of took that spot for most people. and I think that's what happened, is that there wasn't enough room for him in that same kind of space. And then, like what you were saying, Tamara, is like he didn't have a couple of very good debates. There were just a few that were off, and so he was kind of mired in the lower polling. But those were kind of the bigger things. It's harder to move from state to national. And I think also I agree with you 100% with that, Chelsea, is the fact when he said he wasn't going to run for anything. I mean, look at John Hickenlooper. He was smart enough to go back and say, I'm going to run for Senate in Colorado. And honestly, that's what Steve Bullock should do in Montana. We need those type of people to go back and run for the Senate, because the Senate is very important. If we don't get the Senate, even having a Democratic president is not going to really be able to do the things we want to do. So he should be focused on that, and that should have been something he did. Marco Rubio did the same thing for Republicans in Florida in 2016 and went on to win. So that is something that you should do. Go back to the state, focus on a state, win your state races, and then potentially do have a future down the road. He's only, 47? He's got plenty of time to be able to come back if he was, and build up his resume a little bit more and focus on state things where he could be more productive than, getting himself out there at the national stage when he's not ready for it. So
has he put himself in a position where he can't run for senator? Because he said that, like, nothing less than the presidency. Is he able to be like, I've thought about it. I guess I should probably run for something else first?
I don't think so, because Marco Rubio basically said the same thing in Florida, and then he went back and ran. I think, that really doesn't mean much to people.
I think that's more everybody's full of.
Right, and I don't think it means much if you're in there and you're going to be passionate because you don't like Ted Cruz or John Cornyn or whatever, that people are going to go out and vote. And if Texas is going to be closer than it's been in years past, you never know.
Yeah, I mean, I've been hearing about Texas, leaning, becoming
more of a battleground.
More battleground, but we haven't really seen that, and I don't know. I guess it's only so many people can move into Austin. Is really, I think, what it is. I think that it's still, an incredibly red state. It's just you have a few centers that,
Well, all the big cities are again, like Dallas and Houston and San Antonio, and it will be shifting more that way. And I think by the mid next decade, we will see it really become a battleground. I mean, look, when it was only 3 points with Ted Cruz and Beto in the race, that's relatively close. That's within a margin of error where you could start to see candidates being able to close that gap, and you get the right candidate, and you could easily carry Texas again. So I wouldn't say, I don't know if it's gonna be next year, but it's gonna be very close.
One thing that I want to talk about is the future, and because next year is a leap year, we are 364 days away from Election Day. This past Sunday was the 3rd, which will be Election Day next year.
Election year. When you said you wanted to talk about the future, I thought we were going to talk about flying cars. Okay, the election.
Anyone who can deliver flying cars will definitely get my vote. That includes Beto. That if somebody's going to actually, and look, I'm not going to be able to afford them, but if they're actually an option, on the showroom floor, like hovering above a Tesla as a flying car, I'm like, all right, somebody made it happen. So far, I don't think we've even gotten close. I don't know. Have you seen any documentaries about
I love
people
how
who
much
have
we're
invented
spending on this joke. I just made it a throwaway joke.
It's more interesting than everything else.
Yes, that's true.
So it's you can't say that we're in the home stretch because that's a long year. There's a lot of votes to be tampered with between now and then.
That is very true. I mean, that's what makes me nervous.
Yeah.
To tamper with and to deny.
Yes, a lot of electronic voting with no receipts. How are we supposed to know that's accurate?
No backup paper
right.
balloting.
I mean, it does make me nervous. Yeah.
And we do talk a lot about poll numbers, and I don't know, actually, I don't think we've ever really brought him up on the show. I don't know how you feel, Scott, about Frank Luntz, who's used a lot by Fox News. But because he's their go-to guy, I'm always interested in what he has to say, especially when what he has to say is that right now he's finding a majority of the public, and it's a small majority, but it's a majority of the public like what Donald Trump is saying. However, majority...
Opposite.
No.
They like what he's doing.
They like what he's doing.
Not what he's saying.
Right. Yeah, sorry.
Yes.
You're right. A majority of the public like what Donald Trump is doing.
Which I can't believe that, but whatever.
I can't either.
That's fine. But that's a poll. So, of the people he's talked to.
Yeah.
But a majority of the public don't like what he's saying. And so you also see other polls that are like, you have a majority that like what he's doing, but then also... not the exact number, but it's also another majority. These are all very razor-thin margins, just like we had almost 3 years ago, that like what he's doing, but then you also have a majority that's like, oh yeah, but he should be removed from office. So to me, all of these numbers add up to we don't know anything. We have no idea where any of this is going.
I think that this means something quite clear to me.
Oh, this sounds like wishful thinking on your part, but please tell us.
Well, what this says to me is that I guess a lot of people like actually what Trump is, what he stands for.
What he represents.
Yes, that's what I was going to say. Because to say what you're doing, that's so broad.
But they don't like that he makes their racism and all that other stuff so known. They would prefer he keep his mouth quiet about that.
I don't think that's exactly what
well,
that
behave
means.
that way. Put that those kinds of policies into place, but don't tell people how much we hate people from other countries. And
well, I think that there could certainly be.
Even
I'm not trying to
in this
discount
country.
that, but what I think you also get is you have people that are like, oh, you know what, I do like the economy because maybe they're of a higher level income where things are going well according to the tweets that we read earlier. So you have people that I like this. Oh, I like this policy. I like the approach on these issues. But what they don't like are the things that start to feel like
they don't like when their racism
icky.
is outed.
Well, no, I'm saying people who aren't racist that like some of the things that are happening, but they're like, oh, we're getting these things that I didn't think we were going to get, and you know,
favorable to big business.
Right. So you have plenty of big business that's like, oh, I really like all this other stuff.
I got to,
and I was looking the other way, but now it makes me so uncomfortable that I don't like any of those dunces on the Democrat stage, but I don't think I can vote for this guy again. So what we really need is Mike Bloomberg to run. And I just say that because I've read articles about that that's apparently some people's answer to a less than impressive offering from the Democrats. But I think it makes sense. It adds up. Tamra, when you hear these sort of conflicting, sure, the actual poll numbers don't matter as much as the idea that you have these really contradictory sentiments out there with the majority of Americans. What does that tell you?
Well, I agree very much with what Chelsea said, but also the poll was, we like what he's doing. That almost doesn't make any sense. Like, it's so incredibly broad. It's just like, I like that he exists. Is that what that could mean? Because I feel like any of the polling, if they went to the person who checked in favor of I like what he's doing and said, what is it that he's doing that you liked?
I actually
what
asked
would they
this.
say?
I actually asked this to somebody that I was talking to yesterday, who said that thing. One thing that I like that he's doing is and he said, is that he's running the country like a business.
See, that doesn't make that's so broad too. Like,
I guess his business and running it into bankruptcy.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Is like some of his businesses have been
and
very well.
the part about trying to fight for jobs to be here. Well, but that's not going well because the jobs that he's trying to bring back are just they're done with in the market. The energy that he's trying to we're just
I like
beyond
what he's
that.
doing. I like that he is rolling back environmental protections. I like that he is.
I have a coal plant in Louisiana.
That's
to say in your backyard.
So
That's how you
the
make
ironic
millions.
thing to me is that people have an idea of what they think he's doing, but it's based on what he says.
Exactly.
Well,
It's not on the actual reality or the reality of the results of what he's done.
Here, I think it really boils down to something very simple, and that is essentially people like what he's doing, aka the economy. And as we've talked about before, if it wasn't for his chaotic administration, the blatant lies that people aren't comfortable with, the racism, the tweets, he would be coasting to re-election without a problem. If he was a conventional Republican, it would not even be up for debate. It wouldn't matter. He'd be winning. So it's the fact
Unless
that people,
he was Jeb Bush.
Yeah, right. Okay. No, but honestly, I think it boils down to everyone thinks the economy is good, and they think now that he's been handling it here for the past almost 3 years that this is his economy and everything's great. So that's what it comes down to. They feel like they can get a job, that it's out there, that their houses are doing well with values, that interest, those type of things, interest rates for mortgages. So they think the economy's good, and that's what they like, because when you start breaking down the other things, you start asking people, what about, and some people, of course, immigration policy is a big thing, but it really boils down to the economy, and that's what always boils down to elections, and that's usually the number one concern when people are voting is the economy. And if it wasn't for all the other chaos, he'd be gliding to re-election without a problem. But now this could be the first time that it's not the economy and he actually loses because of his craziness.
I just want to point out that a stadium full of people who could afford a ticket to the World Series, meaning they have to be substantially comfortable in their living arrangements, do not like him, according to the poll that we saw in the videos of booing at the World Series. So.
Yes, I think that that was very telling, and he was at the president was at a UFC event where I would say that the boos weren't the same ratio that you had at the World Series, but I think that event you also heard boos. So people that have enough money to go to overpriced sporting events are not necessarily fans. Now, the point to make about that, of course, is that same ballpark absolutely booed President Obama when he was introduced. And the difference is, by the way, that Obama threw a first pitch. He threw it terribly, and we talked a lot about that.
Right, last week.
We did talk about that last week. But President Trump knows his limitations in at least that one area, and he's like, yeah, I'm not throwing a pitch. But... so yeah, I think that.
Are you saying Obama was booed because of the pitch?
No,
or just booed in general?
He was booed when he was introduced,
Okay.
and he at least tried to throw a pitch, is what I'm saying. So
Fair enough.
I mean, it's kind of goes with the territory. It's like if you're the president and you don't get booed, then you're not doing enough. If you just got golf claps, like, oh, it's the president. But. I think that it's very funny too, because that was a couple weeks ago, but the narrative on that on Twitter was basically like, well, F the Nats, I'm going to root for the Astros now, based on the fact that people in the stadium didn't like the president. It's nothing to do with the game or the team itself. And how did that work out for everyone who switched their allegiances at that moment? But anyway, so... I don't know. I mean, I think you see and hear a lot of these things, but it's so far away, that, yes, of course, anything can happen. But I think that Democrats really, we've talked in the last few weeks about their little bits of panic, a little bit of looking around, Hillary kicking the tires. I know you weren't here that week, Tamra.
You
but
would
that
love that. I feel like you secretly are like dying for that to be a
We could
real
have a redo of
thing.
2016.
We have graphics that say Trump versus Hillary.
Be so easy.
So we just can put them up right behind us.
Round two.
I don't want Stephen, who works here, to have to make Warren versus Trump or Bernie versus Trump or Trump versus Bernie versus Tulsi Gabbard running as a Russian-funded third party. It's a long title, but I think we could probably, use some hashtags and get it trending. But how do you? This is a very general question. How do let's take impeachment out of it just for a moment, because it does take a while. If the actual head-to-head matchup that should happen, Donald Trump on the ballot against one of these Democrats, barring anyone else getting in, as we've talked about, Jimmy Carter is eligible for another term.
He is. So true.
He could get in.
That's true.
How comfortable do you feel? I'll ask you first, Scott. How comfortable do you feel about the actual matchup of the election process? And I know it's hard to not factor in any kind of tampering, but just, on the merits, head-to-head matchup, people casting votes, them getting counted, do you feel comfortable with... Are we down to 12? We've still got more than 12, don't we?
Yeah, because we've got a lot of other
15
people that are still kind of there
so
on the...
The baker's dozen or so that we have.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that matchup? I'll ask everyone the same question as we wind down here.
I mean, there's sometimes where I get that nervousness too.
Who's
like,
the matchup?
I'm saying anyone.
Any of the candidates
Any
against
of them.
Trump. Like, are there those people out there that
look,
those
from a
Democratic-
Vegas standpoint, it's Trump versus the field, and the field is all the Democrats.
Okay.
So do you feel comfortable that one of them, and you can pick your favorite one? Obviously, we're all in the Yang gang. We talk a lot about him. I want the $1,000. I was a Beto
not all
guy.
in the Yang
I
gang.
was a Beto guy, but now I'm all in
put
on
it all
Yang.
in.
All in on Yang because I want that cool $1,000 in my pocket. So, but back to the question, Scott.
I do get that nervousness, especially when you start thinking about Biden again, like being the it just makes me nervous. But
it was funny when his teeth fell out.
Yes.
In the debate.
In the debate.
Oh, were you not here for that one? I think you didn't
I
do
didn't
that.
see that
I don't think
either.
you guys
When
did. Was it just the two of us?
I was watching it. I wasn't there, but I watched it.
His teeth fell out while he was speaking. Oh my gosh.
Yes.
All right, we're going to start with that next week.
We are.
We'll actually get the video.
But
for
how?
next
I mean, did that not blow up on Twitter? How did I not know about that?
It blew up on Twitter.
Yeah,
it was
bit.
big. Yeah. Anyway, I'm sorry.
But
I interrupted you. I interrupted you with something that I thought everybody knew about.
No, definitely watch it because it's not like a. I mean, it's obvious, but it's not
He
like they
catches
fell
them.
out of
He
his mouth
catches
or
them,
anything.
but they slip.
Yeah,
While he's talking.
Well, he's talking, but they don't like fall out of his mouth or anything. It's just you see it and
Let me
for
tell
a
you
second.
about corn pop. Hang on. Hold on. Yeah.
So yes, I do get a little bit nervous about some of that you think that or you get a little nervous about thinking about Elizabeth Warren if you like her, but you think, oh, she's going to be pounded with socialists, for a year. But still, at the end of the day, it's going to come down to just a couple of states by a very slim margin, and that's the thing, because we're so polarized that we already know that if somebody's got an R next to their name, a handful of states are going to vote for this candidate, no matter who it is. And if they got a D next to their name, a handful of states are going to vote, and it's going to be down to like 7 states. Mm-hmm. And that's what's scary, because it can be that close down to the wire. And it doesn't matter who the candidate is, essentially, and it's just going to matter who's going to get the turnout enough to switch those few states around to have the Democrat win.
Yeah, Tamra, you missed out on the fun 3 years ago when we did our election night show and Scott colored in all the map, all the states on the map. But I think we could actually have that map here. And
dig it out of the trash?
No, it's long gone. They asked me if I wanted to take it home, and I'm like, it's not going to fit in my car. What am I going to do? And
I don't want to frame that anyways. That was sad.
We never finished because we didn't actually have all of it that night. But anyway, I think, Tamara, do you think we could probably color in about half the country and be right? Like, oh yeah, California, let's go ahead and just pre-print that one with the blue. Let's I don't know. I mean, I maybe it's not as many as half. I feel like half the country. It's not going to matter who's running. They're going to just vote for the R or the D, right?
I mean, I feel like this time there are going to be the people who didn't vote in 2016 because they were just not inspired, didn't like either candidate. I feel like at this point they probably will be more motivated to come out and vote
one way or another.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, but there still will be a lot of voter suppression and gerrymandering and Russian involvement and other foreign involvement. And it's so hard to say, but there's just this little slight part of me that has just a little bit of optimism.
I'm so glad you're able to have that.
I do feel that, I mean, even today, the transcripts that came out with the ambassador to the EU claiming that there was some sort of quid pro quo, and I little things like that. If the taxes could actually come out within the next year,
the Supreme Court,
things like this. Like I feel, I just have this little bit of, the fact that Fox News put out the poll saying that most people were in favor of impeachment. I mean,
but I think you missed the President Trump addressed that. He said that they need to get new pollsters. So clearly, whatever that poll was, it was wrong. And President Trump thinks that they need new pollsters for Fox News.
Things like that are the little pieces that are giving me just a little smidge of optimism.
If I can address the Supreme Court thing that Tamara
quick question,
just raised.
though. Do you have optimism, Chelsea, about next year? I was with you.
I'm running out of faith in the
3 years
American
ago,
people.
I was with you when you bought the champagne bottle. I remember the look in your face.
Yeah.
Do you feel better than that moment, looking at a year from now?
I don't really know.
So hard.
My faith in people and Americans specifically is just it's getting thin.
Okay.
It's getting quite thin. But I wanted to say about what Tamara said about the Supreme Court because, a federal court just said that Trump's got to release his tax returns because there is no blanket immunity for a president who is facing investigations either from a state or federally. But why I want to bring it up is that how amazing would it be if the two Supreme Court justices who, Trump nominated were the very ones who headed the majority in saying, no, dude, you don't have blanket immunity and you've got to release them. And they would likely be those people who might say that if they follow along with the very conservative ideology that they are known for. It would just be the ultimate, like, you made your bed, now you got to lay in it moment. But I also think that the Supreme Court is not going to take it up, that they're just going to say, no, we're not going to take it up, and therefore, by default, it just affirms the lower court's ruling. So either way, it's not going to be great for Trump. It would be great if they took it up and then said, yeah, Trump is full of it.
But if they did take it up, your actual quote, I believe, was, no, dude, you don't have immunity. We know which one of them would have used the word dude. Of the two new ones,
I mean, but
it's pretty apparent.
It's just amazing that if,
Ginsburg.
Well, Ginsburg,
conservatives, they pride themselves on, we are the letter of the law, the Constitution. It's all very black and white.
Rand Paul used to say
Very
that.
heritage
And then there he
foundation.
was last night.
Right. But if the Supreme Court justices on the court sort of decide along ideological lines, then the conservatives would be the very ones that would give Trump the L on this one. So I think it would be interesting however it turns out.
Yes, I agree with that one too.
Just to circle back on the question that preceded it, I don't have much faith in people in general. But I do think that doing a show that night will also be very interesting. Maybe not interesting in the same way as last year, but it's too hard to tell at this point. But I don't even know what time we stopped. It was like 10:30 Pacific, I think.
Oh,
and
gosh, I think it was even later.
It was a little later. We were going to
11:30,
stop at 10, and so that's 2 a.m. Eastern time. I think it's going to kind of be like that. I think that whatever the end result is, it's going to be too close again.
Yeah.
And we're not going to know for a while.
I don't know.
But
It's going to
Days
be...
even.
You ended at 10:30, assuming that it was still
we thought it was
they,
gonna be,
they were shutting it
we
down.
thought it was
Yeah.
going to be I mean, the studio closes down. We thought it was going to be, like, when we scheduled it, we thought it was going to be, like, sorted out fairly quickly.
Like in 2012,
No,
it
but
was
what I'm
done
saying
in-
is by 10:30, like at that point, we knew that he won, right?
Well, then I might have the times wrong. You know what I mean?
A couple minutes after we left.
I don't think so, because
There
I
was
remember,
2 states,
yes,
Michigan
Hillary didn't
and
concede.
Pennsylvania.
Right.
She didn't concede, and
At that point,
that was what was
so-
left. That was the cliffhanger.
They said
but
to
we
go
came back
home
the
and-
next day. So yeah, and then those episodes are still on YouTube. If
Okay.
anybody wants to watch them, by the way.
crying.
Thanks, people.
if you hate us and you hate the slant of the show, you will definitely enjoy those episodes.
Yeah.
I think that it might be fun for some of you out there. But
Thanks, Christian.
The only difference is...
get that view count up. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, the only difference is this time is that people have either learned that either they like him or not, and the ones that sat out in 2016 may be more inclined to vote this time. So I think there are some differences between 2016 and
You have
2020.
people who aren't going to vote their conscience and vote for some writing candidate and that sort of thing.
Yeah,
I
I
think people are
think
going to
people-
vote.
right.
People
My
will get in
mom-
line for either one. Yes.
My mom lives in a very red rural area, and she has been passively saying to me how, and she's very she hates Trump with the power of the sun, and but all of these people who you would assume would traditionally be Republican voters are not registered to vote. So I told her, like, make sure, like, your purpose is to make sure all of these people that have never voted before in this very Republican area are going to register for the first time. I guess that part probably adds to my optimism for just hearing anecdotes like that.
Oh, I thought you were going to tell your mom, make sure they don't register so that they don't. I really thought that's what you were going to say, because you said that it's in a Republican area. So I thought you were going to say, like, make sure they don't vote. Keep them busy that day. Tell
They
them that
don't she's saying everybody that is not registered to vote does not like him. So.
Right. Well, I think we'll start to get some indications as it gets close. Well, obviously. But there was little anecdotal evidence that I think I shrugged off last time. And it was a friend of mine who's a comedian. He performed in Pennsylvania, and he drove basically across Pennsylvania. And he's like, I saw a lot of Trump signs. I didn't see any Hillary signs. I'm like, oh, Pennsylvania? Pennsylvania's not going to vote for Trump. That's the craziest thing I ever heard of. So you start to hear things like that. So we'll keep an eye on it. But hey, we'll still be here. And we'll be here next week. Next week, we'll be here at our regular time. The week after, we got another debate. A Beto list debate. So we will soldier on. But until next week, next Tuesday at 4 Pacific, 7 Eastern, where can we find you, Chelsea?
At Chelsea Galicia.
And Tamra?
At Hey Tamra.
And Scott, where can we find you?
You can find me trolling Mitch McConnell on Twitter at SMan80. That's SMan80. And don't forget to go out and vote if you can, because there's a lot of elections going on across the country.
Wait,
today.
are we voting today in California?
No.
No.
But
Okay,
New
good.
Yorkers are
Yes.
voting on ranked choice.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, there you go. It's 8 o'clock, and they can still vote.
Lots of
probably for another
races.
hour.
Yeah, so get out there and vote.
And you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, at Christian DMZ. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.
Our founder, Kevin Undergaro, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.